Right, he sounds as though actually he should be two people. Well, actually, he sounds as though he should be three. James, Mac and Ernie. Not quite. He's just one man, but he is a man of words, and I have to say, he spruced himself up, because last time he was in my studio, he looked like Catweasel. But he's had his hair cut, he's had the beard trimmed, he's looking very good, and you're global, aren't you now? Because the man of words, the poet, is now bringing hearts and minds together with the Poetry Project, isn't it?
I am, yeah. Doing a project which is kind of taken over the world, really. It's kind of started off in London, and it's positivity. I mean, it's under kind of mental health awareness to get people involved, and to stop people on their daily kind of commute, to stop and look at the words that are inspiring.
What feedback do you get from that? It's one thing to put the words out. I'm assuming that people just wait for you to send the words out, and then they write them up on their underground boards, or they stick them up on the notice boards, or wherever it might be. What sort of return feedback do you get?
We get like people sharing stuff on social media, so we get positive messages back daily. People sharing pictures of the board. Everyone's got their phone on them, so they'll take a selfie with the board, or take it and they'll share it on Instagram, Twitter, and it's just like people saying kind of like, this made my day.
These aren't long poems.
No.
I mean, sometimes it's just a couple of lines. But
yeah.
Do you have a stock of these in the background, or do you knock them up each morning?
Yeah, we have they're from my books, really. I kind of use pieces from my books that are cut down into smaller bite-sized chunks for people that are travelling on the commute. So it's easy you want that bite-sized piece of information that makes you stop.
And are you a naturally positive person?
I am, yeah, I do. I mean, we all try to be, don't we?
Glass half full, not oh, come on, we've all met them. Glass half full, glass half empty.
Half full, is it? Half full, yes. Yes. Depends on the day.
Half full we'll certainly go for.
Yes.
All right, we've asked you to look at the papers today. I can see your own handwriting. These will be worth a fortune in the future. I'm going to nick these off you. Tell me about some of the stories that have popped out into your consciousness, and why do they pop out?
Well, I think for everyone, really, with what's happening with Brexit, I mean, it's a daily kind of thing. The front of every page of kind of every newspaper is covering this, and because the date is looming, 31st of October. Yeah. Forgetting that it's Halloween, it's kind of now Boris has gone to the EU leaders and said kind of one last chance to strike a deal. This
is a strange one, isn't it? It's our Prime Minister who's saying to the EU, yes, you have an opportunity to strike a deal with us, and it's us who's leading. Shouldn't it be the other way around?
Well, I think he's kind of in a way calling their bluff. I think he's kind of saying that we want this we're going to leave with or without deal, in the hope that in the final hours something will happen.
We've had 3 years of this. I mean, you're a positive person. Do you find positivity in Brexit? Because you must be about the only person who does, if you do.
I think you've got to keep looking, keep calm and carry on kind of thing, and look forward in the hope that something can be resolved.
I don't mean whether Brexit itself is positive or not. I mean, just all the haranguing and all the mudslinging and the name-calling that goes on up to the 31st of October.
There is
if indeed it is the 31st of October.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of kind of Project Fear. I mean, today on one of the papers, Whitehall's secret no-deal plan has been leaked, which is pretty doom and gloom if it kind of no deal of shortages of fuel, food, medicine, and social care costs are high and everything.
When you read something like that, and you are a positive person, do you think, I don't believe this anyway because I'm naturally positive? Or do you think we're being misinformed? Or do you think we're being toughened up for something which is going to be hard to get through and will take time to settle down? Do you have a view on it?
I think it certainly piques my interest. It's something I would sit there and kind of read through, or whereas normally you'd see it in the paper, you gloss through it. When you see something like that, in big bold letters, this is what happens if we have no deal, you kind of take notice of it, and you think, well, actually, this could happen. I know we read a lot of stuff in the newspapers with kind of misinformation, but it does panic, a bit of fear there going on there.
So it sells newspapers and it gets people looking at websites.
Yes, it does. And also, I suppose, what is going to happen on the 31st? Are people going to run to your local supermarket and start buying tin goods? You don't know what's going to happen on that night, and I think that kind of with that on top of the newspapers with all this is scary.
Have you started stockpiling? Are you going to stockpile?
I haven't. No, I should though.
I have a tip for you.
Yes.
Smoked bacon.
Smoked bacon.
Or bacon in general.
Right.
I don't know why, but I just keep hearing people saying, supplies of bacon could be a problem. Denmark. I don't know whether that's the case or not.
You just don't know, though, do you? You just don't know what's going to happen. So it's all kind of like, uncharted territory.
Bacon and macadamia nuts, maybe.
That's it.
Okay, that's two that you managed to roll together. Give me another story that's prominent for you.
The big news topic at the moment, especially on the Sunday Express front page, is PC Andrew Harper.
This is so tragic.
Yeah.
So tragic. And it's also not only the death of a policeman in the line of duty, but the backstory that goes with it. Only just married.
I know.
And he was about to go on honeymoon tomorrow.
I know, yeah.
It's so tragic.
I mean, he kind of got dragged. He was responding to a burglary on Thursday and got dragged under a getaway van. Pretty horrific, actually. 10 males were kind of arrested, aged between 13 and 30, and they've actually yesterday will go on to the 36-hour extension. But the kind of thing it raises to me is that criminals don't kind of fear the police anymore, which is a bit worrying. Obviously, crime is bad anyway, but when you can run down a policeman, he's obviously in uniform, and he's dead. Just to me,
I found it very interesting that the media as a whole were very, very careful to say that it was a death and that he had been caught under the wheels of this vehicle. Then there was a little bit of extra information that came out. The question mark as to whether or not he might have been hit by a police vehicle anyway.
Oh, right, okay.
And now there's an additional spin, and it was very something. I think I've seen anybody else pick it up, but Boris Johnson has called it a murder. And I'm not sure that anybody else has yet. But he was very quick to call it a murder. And I just thought,
just careful with that.
Have you jumped in a bit?
Yeah.
Because that implies that it was deliberate rather than it could have been an accident.
They were trying to escape.
Admittedly to do with a stolen vehicle. But it could nevertheless have been an accident rather than a murder. And I just thought that could be a quote that comes back to haunt.
Pretty shocking, though. Even to say the picture of him and his kind of wife, from their wedding on the front page, it's pretty shocking, really. It's one story like that really stands out.
You look at somebody that young who had a life and a family waiting for him, and that's been tragically cut short. This refocuses people's minds. It refocuses people's hearts. And I think perhaps, and I'm speaking personally here, I'm not speaking for the BBC, but I speak personally, it gives us an opportunity to reflect on actually how public servants, be they anybody from the blue light services, and that's any of the blue light services, paramedics in air ambulances, paramedics in road ambulances, the police, fire service, anybody who's a public service who puts themselves on the line. We have to be very careful that we don't look at life as being something cheap and easily extinguished.
Yeah, and I would say that's what I think. I've got to be careful there, that, like you say, the wording of how these things are put out. And obviously his family are going through a tough time right now, and obviously if Boris Johnson's saying things like that, I think you have to be careful. And it is just a horrible story, isn't it, really? Shocking, really.
It brings us all up by our bootstraps.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we count our blessings accordingly. All right, let's move on to something else, hopefully something a little bit happier.
Well,
maybe not.
No. Well, the only thing I did I saw an investigation in the Sunday Mirror that were investigating children that were being kind of left with violent parents. That was on the front page of the news. I hadn't seen that before. Trying to get the laws changed. There's a few legal blind spots about parents' rights, and these children were basically being left with dangerous parents.
By the state, you mean, by local government?
Yeah. Despite knowing their behaviour, kind of the history, they were still being left. And the Sunday Mirror has got kind of special investigation. There's at least 63 children killed who've been left with violent parents. And there needs to be a change in the law.
And this, of course, plays very much towards the Ofsted reviews that we've had for Northamptonshire County Council, which we were talking about on the breakfast show yesterday. There have been a number of deaths in Northamptonshire about youngsters, and precisely what you're talking about in that story, from the wider perspective of the UK, Northamptonshire is not immune from that. And some of those stories have been put into the public domain, and we've reported on them. One isn't, and we know it's there, but we haven't been able to report on it. You do kind of think, is this something of the 21st century?
Yeah.
Or is this actually something that's been around since the days of Hogarth Prince?
Yeah.
And the violence of humanity and some parents in that environment? That's a really difficult one to read.
It is. I read the kind of report, and it is quite damning. I mean, apparently now, under basically they have automatic access to their child regardless of the history in a lot of cases, and a lot of these councils and authorities' hands are tied despite because of human rights. I mean,
the parents' human rights.
Yeah. I kind of read that with a bit of, well, what about the child's, human rights as well? And I just think it's basically become a big thing on the front of the paper, and they've launched this 3-month investigation and kind of gone undercover. And yeah, it's pretty shocking actually, because I've got children myself. So it's the kind of thing where you think to yourself, when you see other children out there going for the same thing, it's a bit, as a parent, you kind of think to yourself, that's pretty horrible, isn't it?
So does the solution start with local government, in which case there's a financial cost attached, and by no means are our councils immune from financial problems, so too other councils across the UK as well? Or does it start at home? And if you've got violent parents, if there is an issue of violent parents, are we encouraging people to blow the whistle? Is that the debate? I
mean, signs can be spotted at schools. I mean, you think about children at school,
and you work with schools.
Yes, I do, and they are they're probably still at school probably more than quite a lot of time compared to home. Sometimes these have start early morning clubs, after school clubs. So by the time they get home, it could be 6 o'clock at night, and then they feed and they go to bed. So the school sees those children quite a lot. So they will see a difference in change, in mood and behaviour, and that is something that can be kind of noted at school level.
All right, one to read certainly with the perspective of what we've been reporting recently and in the last few weeks. I think you've got one final one for us.
Yeah, it was unfortunately that Richard Williams, 86, the Oscar-winning animator on hit film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, died. Well, I really actually like that film.
Was that the movie that sort of brought animation to the fore for you?
Yeah, it was Bob Hoskins, wasn't it?
Because it was live action at the same time as it being animation in the old truest kind of sense.
Yeah, never kind of seen it that way, mixed with kind of live action, like with humans in there. It was just very bizarre, but unfortunately, yeah.
It's a good one to finish on, particularly if you're going to go and see The Lion King, which is, of course, animation as well as, animation that is so close to live action. James, lovely to have you in. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
James McInerney, looking at the papers.
On FM,
online,
DAB digital radio,
and Freeview channel 734.
This is BBC Radio Northampton.
Nice to have James in looking at the papers for us. He'll be back before too much longer. One hour of the mid-morning show to go, and you can find out more about James McInerney by going online and go and have a look at some of his words and how they get used all over the UK and beyond.